everyone. Good evening. Hi. Welcome to the Austin Forum. My name is Rosalia Ariano, and many of you know me as Rosie, and I coordinate this monthly community event. Welcome to all the newbies. I see new faces this month, as is the case every month. Makes us very happy. Thank you for joining us again. For those of you that are new, the Austin Forum is a monthly speaker series and networking event led by the Texas Advanced Computing Center with the goal of educating, inspiring, and encouraging collaborations on issues of science and technology and their impact on society. I'd like to recognize the sponsors that make possible this wonderful event. We have the Texas Advanced Computing Center, IBM, Dell, the Institute for Computational Science and Engineering, ISIS, Intel, Microsoft, and the Center for Lifelong Engineering at the Cockrell School of Education. If you're interested or have a friend who might be interested in sponsoring the Austin Forum, please feel free to contact me. My contact information is available on the Austin Forum website. Question? I heard a question. Again, please visit us. The website is up here, theaustinforum.org. Here we list all of our upcoming speakers as well as archived past presenters and their presentations. The presentation or the video should be up within a week, so you can just click on the YouTube icon via this website. And our next Austin Forum is on September 4th. I'll bring up this slide at the very end of the presentation. We have the TEDx Austin, Million Decisions Behind One Big Idea with Nancy and Shauna. And you see their titles here at the bottom. I don't want to spend too much time, but please join us again on September 4th. As always, we encourage you to visit, to bring your friends, colleagues, and family members to join you at future events and to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And speaking of Twitter and Facebook, we did have this slide up at the beginning, and I wanted to mention it again. We do have a live social media contest taking place tonight. So you have the opportunity to win a $25 gift card to Amazon.com. We will announce the winner at 7:20 p.m. All you have to do is like us on Facebook. That's on the TAC Facebook's page, and submit your response to this question. So what do you think about sous vide cooking? And again, you can do this throughout the presentation, but we will call or select a random winner at 7:20. Okay. That being said, anybody need some responses regarding parking? You have it all figured out. If you need a discount, go across the hotel side and let the restaurant bartender know that you're with the Austin Forum to receive a $7 rate at the garage here at AT&T. And it's my pleasure to invite tonight's presenters from sous vide to social search, how technology is changing how we cook and eat. We have Addie Broyles, food writer and blogger for the Austin American Statesman and Statesman.com and Austin360.com, and Michael Chu, the founder of Cooking for Engineers. He's also a computer engineer. Thank you.
Can anybody hear me? There we go. Hi, guys. All right, I'm going to stand up and talk, and then I'll pass it over to Michael here in a minute. But thank you guys so much for coming. It's so exciting to see a room full of people who are interested in food and technology. Because I came into the food writing job at the Statesman not as a culinary school graduate, not as someone who'd worked a lot in restaurants. In fact, my only restaurant job was as a host at the Nutty Brown Cafe. I'm very proud of that. But I came into it from a journalism background, and you know, my big selling point to my editors when I was trying to get the job was that I knew about blogging, and social media was just beginning, but I knew that there was something that was happening in terms of technology, and it was changing how we were writing about food. And the Statesman was really interested in hiring somebody who would help lead them, not only in how we were covering food, but the whole newsroom. You know, how we are taking advantage of these new technologies to communicate better to our readers and to provide them what they're looking for, and even if it's, you know, if it's crime news, if it's recipes, if it's fashion news, technology has changed how we communicate. And so I really came on board, right at the key time. So this is in 2008, and I joined Twitter later on that year, and I can say pretty honestly that Twitter has changed my life. It's changed my career. It has made it so that I can get invited to things like this, and network with people who you don't believe me, do you? Well, so here's why I say that. You follow people like Amanda Hesser of the New York Times, and you @reply her, and it's a way to communicate with her that you would not have had otherwise, and it's a way to build that two-way relationship. And so, for that networking purposes alone, it's changed my career. But who else has changed the lives of are restaurant owners and small food artisans and farmers and people who suddenly have a voice that they didn't have before. And so one of the biggest ways that technology, in my mind, has impacted food is that it takes down that wall so that any restaurant, and when I say restaurant, it could be a small food company, we could be talking about a farmer, we could be talking about the corner store, we could be talking about somebody who bakes under the cottage lot out of their home. It allows them to directly communicate with their customers, just like I can communicate directly with my readers. And that's unprecedented. I mean, before, even if you wanted to have a website, you had to pay a web developer so much money, and it had to have all these bells and whistles, and restaurant websites are notorious for having music and being bad. But now, you can just have a Facebook page. In fact, many of the restaurants that I see opening up don't have regular websites. They just have a social media presence. And so, that's very empowering for a business owner. But on the flip side, some of that power has been taken away from them. When I started writing about food, we had a very traditional restaurant critic who had been doing that job for many years, and there were not very many critical voices about food that had a publishing platform. And now, just a few short years later, that's changed altogether. And Yelp is a huge, that really does change how a business is perceived in the community, and business owners, they kind of go from being fearful of Yelp to hopefully, in some ways, feeling empowered by it, that they're getting constructive feedback from customers who otherwise wouldn't speak up. But Yelp alone, and when I say Yelp, I mean other sites that have user-generated reviews, Urban Spoon or Google. There are lots of different players in this game. That they're speaking up, and that can be scary. And of course, if you're a restaurant owner and you start getting these reviews on Yelp from these people who are not credentialed critics, your immediate knee-jerk reaction is, well, who are they to take down my restaurant? And I work really hard, and if only they knew how much work went into that meal, they wouldn't be saying this. And so restaurant owners are having to learn how to deal with that, and it's not easy. Because you can't just go on and tear somebody down on Yelp. Tear down the person who's tearing down your restaurant, because then it just sort of flames this war, and Yelp, their terms of service make it so that it's limited what you can say and how much you can go back and forth. So, there are pros and cons about everybody having a say. But another way that people are, from my perspective, it's a good thing that there are more voices in the crowd. Rather than just having one food writer in a town, or maybe two or three, and maybe one or two restaurant critics, now bloggers have a voice. And one of the things, when I started at the Statesman, I had a personal blog, but I hadn't had a food blog. And I knew that this was 2008. Food blogging was not new. There were lots of established bloggers already in Austin. And so knowing that it would not be wise for me just to come in and start a food blog and say, I know what I'm doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing. I reached out to any bloggers that I could find, any food bloggers in Austin. I just Googled it. If I found their website, I would leave them a comment if I couldn't find their email address. And I just said, hey, do you guys want to get together and grab a drink, or I don't know, just say hi. I'm really curious to meet you, and I want to just get to know you. And so sure enough, everybody was really responsive. There were maybe 10 of us, and we met for a drink, and lo and behold, some of the bloggers who had been established and been blogging since 2004, 2005, they had been reading each other, but they didn't know each other, even though they were living in the same neighborhoods and going to the same restaurants and blogging in the same city. And they were so eager for that kind of face-to-face communication that I realized the potential for galvanizing the bloggers was huge. So we kept meeting, we kept having potlucks, we kept having dinners. Pretty soon, restaurants saw the advantage of treating bloggers more like professional media. And so they started having blogger happy hours when a new restaurant would open. I mean, it's a smart tool because bloggers, you know, that was a big controversy when I was doing this from within the newsroom, because there was and still is a healthy amount of skepticism toward people who are in many ways not professionals. But my counter argument has always been that if they're treating themselves like professionals and they're doing professional work and they are setting themselves at, you know, setting an ethical standard for themselves, then there's no reason we shouldn't treat them like professionals, because they have a platform. And that's the wonderful thing about media today, is that, you know, if you're a writer or a freelance writer, you don't have to wait for somebody else to publish you. And I think that that's one of the most empowering things, just as a writer, to know that I can go and have a voice and have a say without having to go through an editor first. I think that's a really neat thing for writers to do. And then specifically now we're getting into food writers, that you can have a blog and have your own little food journal and your own little food section. You know, used to Wednesdays was the newspaper food section day, and now every day can be the food section day if you have your own blog and decide you want to publish on any day of the week. So we started meeting, we met more regularly, it kind of grew into this thing. Pretty soon there was like 40 or 50 food blogs, and I thought that was a lot and was really excited. Kept counting them, kept gathering them. You know, pretty soon the group was just bigger than one person should, you know, be tasked to handle. And so some of the leaders in the community, we got together and decided to start the Austin Food Blogger Alliance, which is a nonprofit that is the first of its kind. It's a 501c7, a social organization. And the whole goal of the group is to provide opportunities for bloggers to learn more about blogging, to be better bloggers, to set an ethical standard for them so that they know what is appropriate and what is not appropriate in terms of accepting, you know, gifts or you know, comped food or cookbooks for review. You know, all those nuanced things that we learn in journalism school, but that bloggers might not necessarily have the, you know, ability to, you know, they might not have known that on their own. So we want to educate bloggers on how to write better, how to take better pictures, how to, you know, keep better blogs, but then also give them an opportunity to give back to their community. And so the group has been around for 2 years. We've had a number of fundraising events. Most recently, we had one here at the Carillon that raised money for a group called Bake a Wish, which they provide birthday cakes for kids and elderly and other people who just otherwise wouldn't get a birthday cake, which is actually really heartbreaking when you think about one of the stories they told at the event last week was of an 85-year-old man who got his first birthday cake on his 85th birthday. And so, yeah, as bloggers, we have a platform to help tell those stories. And that this one organization that, you know, is just a small startup of volunteers, they don't have a food blog with all these readers that they can, you know, share their message to, but that's something that we as bloggers can do, is help tell these stories and support, you know, members of our community that are doing good. And so that leads me to, how many food blogs do you think are in Austin now? If you know, don't say.
117.
117. Higher.
400.
Ooh, 425. You're, well, a little high, but by my count, there are 350 food blogs just in Austin alone. Yeah, and it keeps going up. Every week I find more food blogs and I add to that list. And, you know, if I sound like I'm talking a lot about blogs and I really love blogs, I do. I just think that they are, I just think they're so neat, and that people take, I mean, I get paid to blog, which is a really neat thing, but most people don't get paid to blog, but they do it out of, you know, their own desire to chronicle their own recipes and, you know, create a document that they can pass on to their kids of the recipes that they like to make. And, you know, they're just, you know, I could go on, but what were you going to ask?
You're not counting gardening blogs that talk about.
I'm not counting gardening blogs. Yeah, there's a really healthy gardening blog community here too. Let's see. So, you know, I think there's power in blogging. I'm very proud to be a part of a group that's helping, you know, bring together bloggers so that we can work toward a collective goal rather than sort of competing against one another for page views. And so that kind of philosophically speaks to why I'm so interested and proud of the Austin food blogging community, because, you know, we take great strides in order to work together as opposed to sort of nitpick at one another. Let's see. So another fun project that the food blogger group is doing is that we're working on a community cookbook, and it's going to come out next year. So right now we have about 140 members in the group, and 70 of them are contributing in some way or another, either in the form of recipes or photos or helping design or edit the book. And we're trying to modernize this very old school idea of a community cookbook, where one of my favorite community cookbooks that I have is from my elementary school when I was in 4th grade. But we think it's a really great way to capture the spirit of Austin and really have a snapshot of what people are actually cooking in their homes today. So you guys can look for that book early next year. So here's another trivia question for you. What is the most highly trafficked food website in the world? Which one? Recipes.com. Any other guesses? Allrecipes.com. We got Epicurious out there too, I heard. But yeah, do you say Google? That's not a bad idea. Google.com. Yeah, I think that a lot of people, raise your hand if, I'm going to do a little informal poll. When you're cooking, if Google is the first place you go to, raise your hand. That's a lot for the camera, who can't see all the hands that just went up. How many people go to a cookbook, a regular old cookbook first? Recipes.com. Recipes.com. I go to Google. But I think what I like to do is, I'm the compare and contrast kind of cook, where I take 3 or 4 recipes and sort of put them side by side and see which one I like the best. But think about how much that alone has changed how we even approach cooking. Say you have ingredients in your house. This is another thing, is there are websites and apps that help you just take what you have in your fridge right now and tell you what you can make and give you recipes for it, which is a pretty cool thing. Another really neat website that's out there is called eatyourbooks.com. And what it does is you put in the cookbooks that you have, and it searches the indexes of the book to tell you if you already have the recipe. So it doesn't actually take the recipes. And if you wanted to, I think you could. There's probably search arounds or workarounds that you can do for the search if you want to just search and see what books that recipe is in, and then you can go out and buy that book if you really wanted to. But there's all kinds of really interesting innovators who are working in the digital space to try to make searching and recipe storage easier. Another one is Evernote. It's a clipping website that helps you sort of keep track of all of your various tidbits from across the web. But they actually just recently released a food app that's dedicated to food, so you can actually take pictures with your camera of your food and sort of make a note to yourself that you want to cook it later, or if you're at a restaurant and you want to make tasting notes, then you can go and file it away and essentially create a web-based database of every food thought you ever had. So then the problem is curating that, and how do you keep track of it? I know people who create Google Docs just for recipes, and so then within the Google Doc they can search all of the recipes that they have been cutting and pasting from across the internet. And then they can share it with their friends. So how many of you post on Facebook? Either pictures of food that you have made or recipes that you cooked? So, I think that's something that we're going to see too a lot more, is the evolution of social search, where you can, instead of just going to Google and saying, here's the recipe that I want to make, you can say, I want to know what recipes my friends are making, or what recipes they're sharing on their social platforms, be it Twitter or Facebook or something like that. Who knows what what food magazine has the highest circulation in the U.S.? Good, Taste of Home. Now, how many of you have never heard of Taste of Home? No, this is when I found out that they were the biggest. Do you get it?
It's horrible.
At least somebody speaks the truth. But when you think of so Taste of Home is like a very Midwesterner, I'm a Midwesterner, so I'm allowed to say that, kind of magazine where, there's a lot of make this with a can of Campbell's soup kind of dish, yeah. But it's a lot of it's, essentially user-generated recipes. And, that's such a buzzword in the technology sphere, user-generated reviews of websites, and, but when you think about user-generated content with food, that's essentially, grandma's recipe that you're passing around. And so food is really a perfect fit for this kind of sharing of content and crowdsourcing of content. And so in some ways, this Taste of Home magazine is kind of ahead of its time because it's connecting people and helping them share favorite dishes and favorite recipes, but they're just doing it in a very tangible print way. And they are they are in the digital space. They're trying to be more innovative, but they also know that their audience, they're not the kinds of people who go to the computer first for a recipe. And so you have to give a lot of these either food brands who are curating recipes or just magazines for knowing their audience. And if their audience isn't there, you can't force it down their throats. All right, so I said I was going to talk a little bit more about restaurants. Well, basically I wanted to read this little anecdote from a story in Food and Wine magazine. Last month, this guy named John Feen had a story about, he wanted to see if he could get into the hardest, most exclusive restaurants in the world. And so he realized pretty quickly that he was not going to get into Noma, which is in Denmark, and it's been for 3 years now the highest ranked restaurant in the world. That place gets 100,000 reservation requests. I think it's every month or every year. Per month, 100,000 reservation requests every single month. And for restaurants like Momofuku in New York, that there are people who are building programs to help try to crack the reservation code, because basically at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, you have to try to get, and there are literally like 12 seconds before all the seats are taken. And so it's a matter of microseconds for you to get in there and get that reservation. It took him 9 days of trying, and he finally got a seat at this 12-seat restaurant. And so you can kind of see where this crazy foodism is taking us. That it's way beyond just, you had a bad experience, you can go on Yelp and complain about it. It's sort of this beast, and it brings up issues of ethics. And if you go online and complain about something, maybe you should have just brought it up to the manager. And of course it's frustrating for a restaurant to have to deal with that kind of stuff. And then, we've got people, the Food Network and how we just watch television. You've heard about, it's sort of like armchair cooking, where instead of actually cooking, you just watch other people cook. And I think that happens to a certain extent with YouTube videos. That there are, these web series. One that comes to mind is Epic Mealtime, which, have you guys seen these videos? If I were a man, I would be highly offended that that's what people think. That's what people think that I would want in a YouTube video. Basically, it's like copious amounts of food, like they're like shoving it in their faces, and it's all meat and cheese and bread. Which I know men eat more than meat and cheese and bread, but if you would watch this show, that's all you think. But that's sort of not even real. That's not realistic in terms of what people are actually cooking and eating. But those are getting millions and millions of views. And you've seen this like bacon craze kind of go to an extreme, and that people are wrapping bacon inside bacon and then serving it up, and it's kind of fun for a while. There's a novelty factor to it, but I for one am going to be happy when some of this stuff kind of dies down, and then we get back to let's actually more YouTube videos that are actually about people cooking and helping other people cook and sharing information. One of my favorite YouTube stories is there's this guy named Ken who is kind of like, he looks like my grandpa, who he is a YouTube star because of this video that he made about how to clean corn, how to clean the silks off corn. Have you guys seen this, where he sticks it in the microwave and then he like cuts off the end, and then the corn just like slides out of the husk, and the silk is all left behind and it's perfectly clear? I must have gotten an email of this video 6 times from my family members, and these are family members who do not watch cooking videos on YouTube. And sure enough, I found it, and the video was up for like a couple of months, and he had 7 million views. And he's probably 70. And he has no idea, I'm sure, that he has 7 million views on it. All right. So do you guys remember when, Amazon was first kind of getting out of books, and people were, online grocery shopping kind of became this thing, and they were projecting that pretty soon we were not going to be grocery shopping anymore. But how many of you are still grocery shopping? This is one of the most interesting aspects of food and technology to me, is that we still crave this tangible relationship with our food, and that we want to grow it. I mean, more of us are starting gardens, getting chickens, then getting rid of our chickens. That recently. But people, you know, they still want to go in and pick out the produce. They want to look at the apples. You know, they don't want to just have it delivered. I mean, because you could easily go onto Amazon and just say, here are the foods that I buy every week, and please deliver it every 7 days, because I know that's when I'm going to need it, and just have it show up at your door. But for some reason, we are still choosing to have that relationship. And I think that as we talk about, you know, what's going to happen later in food, you know, in the future, I'm happy to say that I think grocery shopping is not going anywhere. Let's see, there's something else about grocery shopping. Oh, I did hear one funny anecdote from a friend of mine who lives in New York, that when you live in New York, you learn pretty quickly that you never buy a watermelon yourself. You buy it online, and somebody can deliver it to you. So you don't have to walk all over the city with a watermelon yourself. I can think of a few other things I would want to buy online, like a turkey or... let's see, Pinterest is changing. You know, how many of you are on Pinterest? People are excited about Pinterest. So I will tell you that food is not the #1 thing that's pinned on Pinterest. Does anybody have any guesses of what is? Weddings. Weddings. No, that wasn't even in the top 4. So food is #4. Home is the first one. Fashion. Let's see. I think it goes home, arts and crafts, fashion, and then food. But food is only 10% of the content that's pinned on Pinterest, which is kind of a surprising figure.